Today we're going to tackle the carpet on Michael's Mk3. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the IE427 garage. Today we're working on the long-awaited carpet for the trunk in Michael's Mk3. I'm going to take you not on a step-by-step, but kind of give you some pointers on how to do the trunk carpeting. Since the pieces are generally not pre-cut, especially if you have one of the older cars, there are some tips and some tricks to getting everything fit up nice and not getting glue all over your fingers. So let me go ahead and turn you guys around and show you what we got going here. Got home from work a little early today and decided that I would start prepping the trunk for carpeting. So keep in mind this is a Mk3, not a Mk4. So some of the stuff that you're going to see here isn't exactly like you will see on your own Mk4 build if you're building one. But a lot of the stuff is a carryover. If, for example, you decide that you are going to put panels on the inside of your trunk to make the carpeting a little bit easier so you don't have to cut around all of the supports that are on the outside on a Mk3, then this will look very familiar. What I've done is I've taken some black gloss rattle can and I've sprayed the inside of where the roll bars are going to attach. Now, again, this is a Mk3, so the third link, the rear link for the roll bars are removable on the Mk3 and before. It wasn't until the Mk4s that Factory 5 just started welding in the rear support for the passenger side. So I've sprayed all that, and you can see I got in all the little crevices so that it's all black. We're going to be doing black carpeting in this. And I've also done the driver's side, which has the weld-in rear mount. So what that's going to enable us to do is it's going to keep us from having to put carpet inside that recess inside there, because it's hard. It's tough to get the spray adhesive in there. It's tough to get the piece cut to fit in there. And so I found it's just easier to spray that with black paint rather than to carpet it. And you're not going to be storing anything in there anyways. And once the roll bar's in and the bolts in, they're really close to that outside surface anyways. So this is what I do now. And then if you have gone ahead and done your drop trunk mod, what you want to do at this time is paint all the areas where you're going to have to cut the carpeting to fit it around all of the tubes. So basically what you want to do is get the surface underneath to be black so that when you cut the carpet, if there's a spot that you don't particularly cut perfect and there's like an 1/8 inch gap, you're not going to see the silver of your fat mat in this case, or your Dynamat, or whatever material you're using. You don't want to see that through. You can do the same thing in the cockpit, but since we're not doing the cockpit on this one, the upholsterer is, I'm probably not going to document that. The other thing is, as we were laying the fat mat down in here, everything we do as far as cutting the heat and sound mat and cutting the carpet works off the center line. And by doing it this way and using like a framing square, you can cut these pieces on the first try. Basically, you're going to measure from your center line out to the corner over here. You're going to measure from the center line up here over to your corner over there, and so on all the way around the trunk. And by doing that, you're going to get a piece that's going to lay in there nearly perfect. Once you get it close, you can actually trim the carpeting with scissors if you need to. So err on the side of caution. You can make your piece just a little bit bigger, and then you can trim it down to size. So that center line carries all the way through to right here. And what we're going to do here is we're going to measure from right here to the corner, from the corner down, from that corner out, and then back. And we're going to, from this corner out to the edge, and then to the back corner here, we're going to add all those together. And then that's going to give us our total length or depth of carpeting, because we're going to take that piece and we're going to glue it down, and we're going to wrap it all the way around this corner and around this piece and underneath. So it's all one continuous piece. The one thing we're going to do is once we get to here, we're going to have a small seam here. What you're trying to do is make your seams as small as possible. So we're going to have a seam right here. This piece here is going to wrap down and it's going to stop. We're going to cut that piece off right there, and we're going to cut it right here. And then this piece will be one piece from here all the way down to here. And then we're going to come all the way out past here, and we're going to use our fat mat as a guide to cut our piece when we're done. So we're going to have a number of pieces in here, and what we're trying to do is limit the splices or the joints where the carpet comes together to as minimal as possible. So this, again, this will be another seam, but it's going to be very tight, and it's only going to be this big at the top. It's only going to be this big here. It's only going to be this big here, and it's going to disappear that way. But I'll get more into that when we actually start doing the carpeting. So I wanted to make sure I showed you how I lay the carpet out before we get into it. And then I'm going to take you around to the front of the car, since I finally got the front chassis members painted that we had the POR 15 on, and it's looking really nice up there. We want to get this done because hopefully we're going to be getting the radiator put in here in the next week or so, and I wanted to make sure that that was all clean and painted and pretty. So we've painted all the frame rails in the front here, and on the other side I got the wire harness just pulled back out of the way. And then once this dries, hopefully tomorrow, I'll be fastening that with the cushion clamps, and this will all be ready to go. Alright, so it's the next day. I showed you guys how we use the center line of the trunk, and I even have that mark, oops, I even have that mark transferred up to the top of our speaker enclosure, because I used that in order to cut the aluminum piece that went here to close out our aluminum back on the speaker box. So what I do, much like when I'm cutting the fat mat, is I use that center line reference mark, and then I work my way out to the corners with a measurement. Now on this, it is important that this line that you establish for the center line of the trunk carpeting, and even the fat mat or the heat and sound mat that you're using, that you make sure that is square with whatever you've got going here. So if any of these angles are off, make sure they match before you start doing your layout. I know for a fact that I laid this out 90 degrees of this line here, and so with that I can measure off my center point to the corner of the back, and to the corner of the back on this side, and then to the corner of the front and corner of the front over here, and everything lays out real nice. Then what I do is, this is the spray glue that I like to use. You can use the 77, which is the general purpose spray glue from 3M, and it will work. I've just found that this stuff tacks up quicker and gives more of an initial strength when you glue it. But once you place the pieces together, don't plan on getting them apart. So make sure you've got everything laid out exactly where you want it. And then what I generally do is, like on this piece, I started from the center line, and I marked, I folded this piece over back to my center line mark, and then I spray glued the bottom where the carpet was going to fasten down, and I sprayed the backing on the carpet itself, and then I rolled it back over into place over here. And as you can see on the sides, what I do is I make it just a little short. We're going to have a battery cover that's going to come into here, and it's going to cover this up. And without that notch, then you end up having to redo your aluminum because it doesn't want to tuck all the way in there. So I left that out. The cover for the battery here is going to be carpeted as well. So that's going to enable that to slide right in. And then here, I think I pointed it out before, you're going to measure from this point to this point. From this point down, you're going to add, we've got an inch overhang here, so we added an inch for that. And then we want to go ahead and we want to wrap this carpet underneath and glue it to the bottom, so that's another inch. So all told, I think it was 13.5 inches here, 3 inches here, an inch, and an inch, so I ended up with 18.5 inches. And I glue it in pieces. So I glued this half second. I did not glue this portion down until this was all done. And then I folded this up, spray glued the backing, and then spray glued the back of the carpet, and then folded it over. Now I did spray glue this 1 inch overhang at the same time. And then what I did is I left the tail of this that's going to fold underneath hanging out, so I could fold it back this way and spray glue both that and the underside at the same time. And then once this tacks up, you fold it under, attach it. I use one of these trim tools, and I use this blunt end to run it in the corners so it adheres really well, and it works out really well. Something that you guys build in the later cars, where the roll bar mount is already in on the passenger side, you will not have to cut out for this. But you can see I had to cut out not only the heat and sound mat, but I had to trim the carpeting so that this will sit flat down in there and the bolts will go in. So if you're working on an older car that has the bolt-in rear mount and you're having a passenger side roll bar that you're going to be using, make sure you do that, because otherwise this sits high and you'll never get the bolts to line up, and then you'll have trouble getting the roll bar to fit as well, because it's just too high in the car. So I'm going to continue on. I'm probably going to take care of this piece here next, and then I'm going to take care of this piece over here, and then I'm going to take care of the piece on the back, and this piece is actually going to go from here up, over, and down. And then the last pieces I'm going to do will be the front of the trunk here, the front of the drop box, and the bottom, because this piece here is actually going to fold down into here. That's why we painted these pieces right here. Now don't be overly concerned about getting glue onto your painted or powder coated surfaces. You can use like Goo Gone or one of those type of products to get the glue off of areas where you get a little overspray. But do your best not to get it everywhere, because it's not fun to go back and get it cleaned up later. But there are some instances you just can't. No matter what you do, you're going to get it on something, and you're just going to have to worry about getting it off after you're done. There are a couple spots on the carpet here and here that I got a little bit of glue that was on my fingers, and we'll do the same thing there. We'll just get a little Goo Gone on a cotton swab, and those will come right out. So I will get back with you when we're a little farther along. Well, it's only been a couple of seconds for you guys. This has actually been a few hours for me. So that's not to say you can't do it quicker. I probably could have, but you know, things come up in the shop, you get sidetracked. And this is where I'm going to leave it for today. I'll be back at this tomorrow morning. It's time for dinner, so I'm going to go in and eat. But as I described, this piece over here is one piece, and if you're going to measure for this, keep in mind there is a step in the side panel over here. So make sure you account for that when you do your measurement. And then this piece goes this way and down, and there are relief cuts at each one of these points right here. And then that piece goes ahead and wraps all the way down the back and out. If you can see, there's aluminum showing here. That's where the fat mat or heat and sound mat ends. We're going to trim this along the edge of the line we have for the fat mat. That'll allow us to put the bulb seal on here, and same thing over here. I just left this one long because it was easier. This piece, what I do is I actually start the glue from the top. So I have the inside portion of it just touching the bottom of the drop trunk box, and then I kind of fold it forward over its, over itself, and then I glue the top and I glue the actual back of the carpet, and I place it in knowing that it's going to be touching the bottom. And then once that's glued, then you can glue the back portion here down and out. And I can see that I'm going to have to get this to stick a little bit more in here. So that's good. And then this side piece over here, I'm going to actually wrap it up and in. And I'm probably going to pull the screws out, these 3 screws, and have the carpet end just past the screws and then put the screws back in. Because that way when the panel goes on for the battery, there won't be this silver line right here. I've done it that way in the past. And then, of course, the front portion of the drop box will go in, and the bottom will be the last piece. So I'll start working on those 2 pieces, 3 pieces in the morning. And then what I'm going to show you is the trick to do the side pieces over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually cut the fat mat to fit, and we're going to hold it down the distance of the bulb seal, where the bulb seal goes over the top. And we're not going to stick the fat mat to the aluminum yet. We're going to use that as a pattern for our carpet. We're going to stick our carpet to it, and then we're going to put this piece in all at once using the adhesive back of the fat mat to adhere it to this. And I think I might try to do this as one piece and see how that works out. If not, I've done it in the past where the 2 pieces join right here at such a short distance you can't really see it, and the trunk's pretty dark. Even if you put a light in the trunk, you're not going to pick up on that little piece right there. So I'm going to knock off for tonight, and I will see you guys in the morning. Alright, sorry about all the noise. I've got the fan going over there because working with that glue, and I'm not the safety police here, but I do wear a full respirator when spraying the glue because it stinks. And if you spray with that stuff all day, even with the mask on, you get this taste of glue in your mouth, and it sucks. So I've got the trunk, all the floor, and all of the area of the well for the drop trunk mod all carpeted. And I'll clean up the glue residue I've got here and there in just a little while. I actually wait for the glue to harden, because it with your finger you can just kind of roll it off the surface if you get it on the carpet. So what I'm working on now is I'm working on showing you guys how to do these side panels and save yourself a little bit of aggravation of having to template them twice. So what I do is I take an old piece of bulb seal. If you're building your car for the first time, you can cut, a 3-inch or 4-inch piece of this bulb seal off of the roll that they give you and use it as a template. And all you're looking to do is mark it so that you know how far down that your heat and sound mat and your carpet need to go for this to go back on properly, because it will not go on with the carpet and with the heat and sound mat on there. So let me grab a tool out of my workbench over there, and I'll come back and I'll show you how we're going to measure that stuff when we actually template. So we pulled off the bulb seal. I've got that over here, and I'm going to show you how I do this to get the rough size. I will put the piece up there after I have a rough dimension of this. This one was 12 3/4 inches from the front to the back, and it was 7.5 inches to the tallest point I needed up here in the front. I put it up here and I taped it just to hold it in place. Then I took a break-off utility knife and held it in place and cut this opening, because this is a recess, and then I cut the slot that goes around the 3/4 inch square tube. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the tape off so I can expose my line that's beneath it. And you can do this ahead of time. You can measure for this before you okay, so out of the way for now. And then I'm going to take a carpenter square. And I know there are probably some carpenters out there that probably don't know how to use this tool. Luckily, I have a carpentry background and I know a lot of tricks that you can use this tool for. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold this up here and we are going to adjust the depth of the rule part of this, and I'm going to need 2 hands for this, so hang on. All right, all marked. I've got a black marker line all the way from the front to where the tube is, and then on this side from the tube back. And I'm going to pull the piece off, take it over the table, and I'm going to trim the fat mat on that line. All right, so now if I hold this up, you can see there's my line. The fat mat comes right up to it on the front and the back. So we're all good there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this over back to the table, back to the bench, and we're going to mark a piece of carpet to fit on the back of this. We're going to glue the carpeting to this, and then we're going to put this piece in place. Here's something else I forgot to mention. You're going to find that as much as these cars aren't perfectly symmetrical from side to side, some of these panels are very close when you're cutting things like your heat and sound mat and your carpet. So don't miss the opportunity while you have this first pattern made to look to see how well it fits on the other side of the car. I'm going to use this same piece because it's pretty darn close. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pattern out for another piece of the heat and sound mat for this side, just the mirror image of it. And that'll make doing this piece a lot easier. So these are the 2 pieces. As you can see, I did a mirror cut from this one to this one. I just have to make a small notch in the top for that one. And I already have the pieces of carpet cut. One for that one for that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the back of the carpet. I'm going to glue the face of the fat mat, put them together, and then I'm going to go around and trim the carpet to the fat mat all the way around on both pieces, and we'll put those in. These haven't been affixed yet. They haven't been glued onto the side panels yet, but you can see I've still got the backing on the fat mat, and they slide right up into place. And we've maintained enough room at the top for the bulb seal to snap on. Got that side just resting in there too. So I'm going to go ahead and affix those to the panels, and then I'm probably going to close out the video because the rest of this is just going to be the same. I'm going to cut all these different pieces. We won't put a piece up in here. This will end up getting painted black up here because you can't see it over the top of the battery box, but most of you guys aren't going to have that kind of battery box. And then we're going to cut the fat mat for that one and these 2 over here and put the carpeting on the same exact way. So the next time that you guys see the trunk, it'll probably be done as far as the carpeting. Still got to put fat mat on that panel as well, which is over here in the cockpit. And we're going to do the same thing on that one. Basically just lay it on top of the carpet, cut out a rough shape, glue both sides, and then trim it to fit. All right, I think I'm going to wrap up the video here. As you can see, I've got the 2 pieces that we templated for affixed now to each side. So this piece on the driver's side and over here on the passenger side. We're going to do the same exact thing for the rest of the panels. This one, so I can economize on the amount of fat mat that I use, I'm probably going to do it with 2 pieces, but it's not a big deal. It's probably going to have a seam right here, and what I'm going to do when I template it is I'm just going to use some blue painter's tape to hold it together while I template. And then once it's templated, then I will pull that tape off and glue the carpet to both pieces. So it's not a big deal, so I'm not going to show you that. Last thing for you guys before I close out the video, you're going to have pieces like your access panels, and granted this may not be the same shape as the access panel you have in your car, but you're undoubtedly going to have scraps of carpeting as well that may fit those pieces that you need to cover in carpeting. So save those, don't just toss them away until you're done carpeting. We still need to cover the fuel pump access cover. We need to cut out for the fuel sender, and then we have a cover for that that's going to go in place. This one's going to be pop riveted in because we're not going to need to get to this hopefully ever, but we'll still have access to it if we do. The one over here for the fuel pump is probably going to get rib nuts, or nut certs as some people like to call them, because rib nuts is actually a brand name, I believe. And what we're going to do on this is we're going to enlarge these holes before we do it for the screw size, the machine screws that we're going to be putting through there. And when we carpet it, we'll actually use a hot soldering iron with a small fine tip on it through the backside, and that is going to cauterize the face of the carpeting and make a nice clean hole that won't fray and you know, cause problems down the line. You can also do that with your seat belt holes in the front. And since we're talking about it right now, what I do, see if I've got it in here or not. I've got them on the other side with a bunch of garbage. When I pre-fit the seats and make the holes in the floor, I put bolts through the holes. Okay, so I've got a couple of screws in here right now. And so that way, when in this case, the upholsterer puts the carpeting in, he's going to carpet right over those. He's going to be instructed to leave those in place, and then I'll be able to feel those through the carpeting when he's done. And I'll cut a small X in them, push them up from the bottom, and I'll do the same thing with the soldering iron, and I'll cauterize around the hole to seal up the carpet, but it'll still allow the bolts to go through. All right, that's going to do it, everybody. The next time you see the trunk, it'll probably be finished carpeted. Maybe with the exception of the battery cover, because I haven't made that panel yet, and I still have to put some nut certs in for that. And I like to use the little winged threaded studs that go in there. They're 1/4 20, so that it's removable. And so that way, if you ever leave your lights on and need a jump start, you can get in there to jump start the car. But that's going to wrap things up for today. As always, we appreciate you all for watching. If you like what you're seeing, do the like, the share, the subscribe, and all that good stuff. And then we'll see you guys all next time. Have a great day.